Hello everyone, my name is Abhi Bhardwaj. I'm back with lecture series on science. Today's topic is going to be air pollution and I'm going to pick smog. So basically most of us have heard about what smog is. Many of us experience it every day in major cities all around the globe. And so let me go back a little bit in history where this bird came from. So when you talk about smog, it came from combining two words, smoke and fog. And it was coined in 19th century in London, because London, England used to have a lot of fog, and then as the industrial revolution started, they started using a lot of coal burning, and which led to mix the smoke with fog, and then they combined these two words to make a new word, and that's smog. So basically that's how it came from. uh, when we talk about this smog, we know that major cities all around the globe face it, especially in 1950s. We had a lot of problem in the United States, Los Angeles to New York. Many of these cities were facing huge smog problems, but many of them has now taken care of it, so you do not feel as say you would feel in Beijing in China or New Delhi in India. And so these two cities gonna be actually focus of my discussion also, and we're gonna see how probably first we'll understand what is smog and what we can do to reduce the smog. So when we say, let's pick New Delhi for instance. When we look at New Delhi, especially in winter, we see that many flights gets cancelled. People, there's a low visibility, people cannot go out of the homes, and it's very difficult to breathe and live there. And so what is the reason? What is the what First of all, what causes and what is smog? So smog basically is, as I mentioned, it's smoke with fog, but smoke is not the only smoke we used to have from, say, burning of coal. Now the smoke comes from many other sources, and one of the biggest sources is transportation. So when we look at, for instance, cars, trucks, trains, whatever use fossil fuel, also produces a lot of smoke, and and that leads to, especially in cities, that leads to the thick smog. That is one of the reason. Others are coal burning. So if you have coal burning plants to produce electricity or power, that also pumps that smoke into the atmosphere. And especially in winter time, because it's it is the atmosphere is denser, and basically water vapors combining with it, and it becomes much more difficult for it to escape. So basically you see much more problem of smog in winter. And when we talk about, say, what are the different gases we are experiencing in smog, or we see in smog. So when we talk about, for example, transportation industry, then we are pumping carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur oxide, nitric oxide, nitrogen oxide, so all NOx. And then we also have hydrocarbons. So because we use petroleum, we use diesel, so mostly diesel trucks, for example, they're also adding a lot of carbons in there. And then we have dust particles, especially in countries like India. You see a lot of dust particles, so that adds to the problem. And then you add water vapor in there, so the mix creates a toxic mix of all these different dangerous gases. And as it cannot escape, so it stays at the lower level, and that's where the visibility goes down, and it becomes very difficult to breathe also and live in those cities. So, and what other thing is happening, is that when you see this toxic mix and you add the sunlight and heat into the picture, then it becomes a chemical reaction, you know and that produces another kind of smog, which is called photochemical smog. And that's the dangerous one, because now in the photochemical smog, you will not only see the nitrogen oxide and these volatile organic compounds coming from your transportation industry. You will see aldehydes, you will see, you know, a different, like tropospheric ozone would be there, you know, and many volatile organic compounds are there, which are very dangerous for your health. So you know, and just look at the gases. The CO2 is not good, carbon monoxide is not good, you know, so sulfur dioxide is not good, nitric oxide is not good, all is NOx, not good for your health. And then you add hydrocarbons, and then this photochemical smog, kind of the, you know, the reaction which goes on creates all these aldehydes and all these, you know, volatile organic compounds. When you breathe this, what it does to your lungs is that, you know, it kind of chokes them first of all, but then you're breathing these toxic gases, especially people who are young. For example, young kids would be much more worst effect. They will develop bronchitis, they will develop asthma, they will develop many respiratory diseases. Not only that, but cardiovascular diseases and different kind of cancers are also appearing because of that. And especially cities like New Delhi in India are kind of choking because of the pollution we have right now, the air pollution we have in India. And how do we measure this? So basically, when we talk about measuring, we talk about particulate matter. And particulate matter, we put two values. One particulate, it's called PM, PM10 and PM2.5. PM10 basically is, you know, any particulate matter which is smaller than 10 microns, and the PM2.5 is any particulate matter which is smaller than 2.5 microns. So this is how we measure. But when, for instance, when you look at Delhi, I'll give you an average, you know, PM readings there. So it could be varying from so it's a PM10 could vary from 226 and or two roughly 230 to 250, you know, and it can go up and down. So it's basically winter is more and summer might be a little better, but this is very high. Same thing for PM 2.5, the readings could go up to 170, you know. So and when you compare this with, say, New York, then New York is also a very big city with a lot of population, but say for New Delhi, the reading, you know, I'll give you just an example. PM10 is 229, but for New York is 16 only. You see, so the difference is there, and these the developed countries have kind of taken care of the smog problem, and it's not as bad as it used to be in 1950s, but developing countries especially struggling with it still. What can we do to reduce the smog? So that's a very difficult question, but what you can do, especially in India, what you can do, so you have to find the sources of causing the smog. And as I mentioned, the main source in those countries are you know, the number of cars and trucks, especially the trucks which uses diesel, causes a lot of smog because they are not following all those strict guidelines, you know, set by the Western world for the engine efficiency, and they do not have catalytic converters to make sure that, you know, they are not pumping directly so much CO2 and other gases like NOx gases into the atmosphere. Especially the trucks, as I mentioned, they still use diesel, and they use the smoke coming out of those trucks is like dark thick smoke. So when you add those, you know, thousands of trucks, you know, going through the city every day and night, you will see that that will lead to smog. Other is cars, as I mentioned. All the cars has to follow the rules of highest efficiency engines, where you have catalytic converters which takes care of these gases, and then we can reduce. If we enforce those rules in India, then we will be able to at least partly control it. Other factors are in India especially are burning of agriculture waste just openly. That also leads to, so nearby villages, you know, from Delhi for instance, burn all this agriculture waste, which adds to that problem, and this needs to be addressed also. So we need to have incineration, you know, places where we have rather than open burning, it has to be closed burning, so it doesn't release the, all these gases directly into the atmosphere. So those are the things and you also have to look at the coal burning power plants, which also leads to, especially near Delhi, leads to the smog problem. So what we need to do is we have to convert that to the newer technology, use less of the coal burning, because that's adding to the problem. And so these are the steps, and how can you implement those is basically you have to first have the public awareness. So public has to stand up and tell the government, and government knows and public knows, but nobody does the way the things should be done. This has to be done at the war footing, like we have, for example, defense budget. We have to have an environmental budget where we have to make sure that these things are taken care. So we put in place the infrastructure. For instance, rather than everybody bringing their car on the road, if government provides them buses, so very good bus service, which are battery operated, for instance, or we provide more subways, so that people, rather than going by their cars, go by either buses, which are battery operated or electric, and the subways which doesn't pollute, and also biking, rather than so take a bicycle rather than bringing the car. And so government has to provide that infrastructure first. On the second hand, government has to make sure that all the transportation, all the cars and trucks are meeting the requirements of engine efficiency. Very, very important that it doesn't pollute the environment. So that has to be enforced. And then all the burning has to go indoor rather than the way it is done right now, outdoor, which leads to lot of problem. Another problem in India is still that there are a lot of villages who still use wood to cook. That has to go. So we have to provide at least the infrastructure, and at a very lower cost, so that they could use natural gas, like CNG, for cooking, rather than burning the wood. And that all adds up. Plus we have a lot of dust particles, which leads to make this problem even worse. So when you look at the cities here, for instance, they're all covered with grass. On every road, on the side of the road, you'll find grass here, very less dust particles, whereas in India we still do not see that. And that's one reason that it adds to the dust particles also in the cities, which makes this problem much worse. And the biggest concern I have is for the citizens who live in those cities, especially in Delhi, because they're gonna have a lot of health problems. This is a very serious health problem, not only for old and very young people, but also adults, because many of them are developing all these cardiovascular diseases, all these respiratory diseases, which can be prevented. And if we need to, when we say that we want to develop and we want to have country at the forefront of everything, we first of all have to understand that environment has to go along with it, and we have to focus and invest a lot of money into this. Because if even if we are the most developed country in the world, but we do not have a good quality air to breathe, or on the water which is not a drinkable water, it's not gonna make the difference. So first of all is the quality of living has to increase, and lot of effort has to go towards the not only cleaning the air, but water and your environment around where we live. And every citizen has to take that responsibility and take it very seriously with the government, that this is our first priority, nothing else, but this is our first priority. Thank you for watching.